Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans, but this time we are talking about how commentators have to sell the matches and the angles and the storylines that wrestlers are involved in. I guess I'm talking more about matches here and whatnot, especially the maneuvers and whatnot. If somebody is sitting there at commentary, I know you've got to kind of have play by play. You've got to tell people what is happening and whatnot. But maybe somebody who is blind is watching it. I don't know. They're not watching it technically, but whatever. You know what I mean? But then again, there might be people that are listening to the audio of the match or something like that. So that kind of thing is important to some extent. But I think that calling the moves, move for move, whatnot. He did a headlock, and it's a head scissors, and it's this, and it's that, and like that sort of thing is no good. That's no good. You can't be saying Mike Santana gets Jerry Lynn in a headlock or whatever it is, and then Jerry Lynn reverses into a Hurricane Runner, and then he does this, and and then whatever else it is, and now he's got the brass knucks, or whatever else it is. Of course, sometimes you've got to bring up the obvious things or whatever, and things like that. Sometimes it's not so obvious, sometimes it isn't. Especially when it's behind the referee's back. He's pulled out the brass knucks behind the referee's back. That's an obvious thing. The audience can see it, but the intent has to be there. You have to call about the intent. He's intending to cheat by using the brass knucks, and he's trying to hide it from the referee. This cheating son of a gun, he's trying to hide the brass knucks behind the referee's back. Call it like that, or call it in a similar fashion. You're not just saying he's pulled out the brass knucks, whatever. Unless it's a hardcore match or whatever it is. But then again, it's like, well, you're still trying to call the intent of the action or whatever it was. If the brass knucks or whatever it was, or the chain or the kendo stick or whatever it was, it doesn't matter, was used a few weeks ago or a few months ago, whatever it was, in between these guys. This harkens back to months ago when he hit such and such with the brass knucks or whatever it was, or the other guy hit him with the brass knucks or whatever it was, now he's pulling the brass knucks to exact his vengeance, you're trying to reflect not only the action, but the story that these guys are in, pulling little details out of, the story that they've been involved in and the actions that have happened in the last weeks and months and whatever else. You're trying to glean, the intent. Look at the hatred in these men's eyes for each other, Same for the action. You can't just say he hit him with a spear. You have to say he hit him with a devastating spear that nearly ripped him in half. You've got to sell the move. You know what I mean? You've got to sell everything so that it's bigger than life. So that it sort of makes that bigger impact and whatnot. Same for, little things of, just looks or desire or things like that. He barely kicked out. You can see it in his eyes. He's glassed over, things like this and whatnot, you're trying to oversell everything, These guys absolutely despise one another, the vehement and violent promos that these guys have had, or, not promos, but you know what I mean, that sort of thing. The war of words that these guys have gone through, and now it's going to culminate in a fight tonight, here in Hotlanta or whatever, or if you're building up to it, like the war of words is going to end tonight, or in 2 weeks time in Atlanta, where, you're not just trying to sell the match, you're not just trying to sell the angle, you're trying to sell the next show, you're trying to sell every single little thing that matters to future business. You've got to sell all the aspects. You cannot just sit there and call the action. Yes, talking about the story and where, why is this person fighting so hard? What is their motivation? Whether it's the babyface or the heel, why is the heel going to all these, extremes or whatever else it is? You need to understand that motivation. It needs to be drilled into you every single step of the way throughout that. And if a match or a segment or a character doesn't really have motivation and you can't really reflect their story or whatever else it is, then that's where that person, hey, we're not meant to care about them. Because if they don't have a story, if it's not being told to us or whatever else it is, then it's like, well, they don't care, so why should we care? Like, same for a title. You've got to build up the prestige for the title. You've got to oversell it. It's hard with a new title, but it's one of those things, like, when you're trying to, like, emotively talk about some of these things. Why is this going to be important? Somebody setting that standard, trying to. And a big thing about commentary is it has to, strike that chord. It has to feel real. You have to be able to feel the emotion in the announcers' voices, that sort of thing. You've got to have your effectively babyface announcer, or the announcer that's kind of like trying to see everything as by the rules, so to speak, which is by the babyface way, effectively, in the end of the day. And then you've got to kind of have your heel or, color commentator that's kind of trying to, show you, what the heel believes and trying to have a voice for them and whatnot, despite like the common beliefs of everyone else. They're trying to do what they're trying to do because of these things, and that's right or that's wrong or whatever, because of what they believe. Like, they don't believe in playing strictly by the rules or whatever else it is, and that might not be popular with some, but it gets the job done, or does it, type thing. But sometimes, most of the time, it kind of does. So that's story, until it doesn't, sort of thing. When the babyface finally finds a way, or finally fights out of the situation, or finally, tears everything down and whatnot, and all of this. So, yeah, and that's why I think, when you're listening to commentary, like, having 100% like solid script, same with like promos. You cannot have like, you have to say this, you have to say that, you have to, like, it should be up to the commentary to be watching and to be engaged in what they're seeing and react naturally, or as naturally as possible, to what they're seeing. Now, again, I think that people that are in commentary, especially like the play-by-play person, should be in on production meetings, because then they will understand, okay, this is what we've got for this person. This is what we've got for them for the next few weeks, the next month, the next 6 months, whatever it is, or whatnot. But this is where we're going to focus for now. Like, those other things are going to come later, so we're going to focus more on them later. But just so you know, this is kind of where we're going. We're going to ride this out for the next few months, or whatever it is, with this person or that person or whatever else it is. But these guys are going to be here, and we're going to utilize them, and we're going to do big things with them. We're not just going to forget about them, even though like they're in this position now or whatever else it is. we've got to find something else for them to do. But yet we've kind of got to go, okay, well, we can't just keep doing this with you guys. We've got to do other things and whatnot, or we've got to go this way. We've got to, like, it's better if you guys are the challengers because you're great baby faces. It really doesn't make, much sense for our roster right now, and we don't want to turn too many people heel or whatever else it is. We want to bring up some of these young guys, and like, if you lose to some of them later on while you don't have the belts, it doesn't feel as bad or whatever else it is, and that sort of thing, and like, again, it doesn't, like, for icons and legends or whatever else it is of the sport, it doesn't matter to them if they take a loss here or there on their way out. They'll just be as popular as what they once were, and people will forget about that kind of stuff a lot of the time, just because they're happy to see somebody back somewhere, or they're happy to see them again, or whatever else it is, because again, they do know that, hey, we haven't got long to see some of these guys. This might be one of the last times we do get to see them, so hey, we want to go out and bloody well see them. But like, again, you do need that perspective of people, and again, the same relationship with the wrestlers. You need to say, like, from the wrestler's perspective, this is what I'm thinking, and this is where I'm thinking it's going, even though, like, or this is my motivation, or this is my character's motivation, or this is what I think the character motivation should be. It should be a collective effort between, everyone. You have to all, like, you're all in this team working together. You're all trying to make every TV, every show, every pay-per-view, like, the best show that it can be. That is why you've got to have these production meetings. That is why you've got to have, these connections with these wrestlers, and the connections with, like, the people backstage and whatnot, or whatever else, the production people and whatnot. You've got to understand, like, what's, like, at least roughly, not every single spot or not every single thing or whatever else it is that's going to happen in the match. Because again, if you know every single thing that's going to happen in the match, then that does, like reduce kind of like the ability for you to be like, holy shit, or whatever else it is, when something big or crazy happens. But then again, it is one of those things that when you do see some of these things, like, actually happening, it is one of those things to be like, well, shit, like, they told us that they were going to do a big spot or whatever it was in the match, but, like, we didn't think it was gonna be that big. Holy shit, like, type thing. You've got to be kidding me. Like, for the love of mankind, or whatever. Like, these calls, they're, sort of etched in history. By God, he's broken in half. Those sorts of things. Those are the things that stick with people, for the next 10, 15 years or whatever else it is. Those sort of semi-real calls. But if you see somebody who's reading off of a script, it loses that impact. But when you see somebody just looking down or whatever, you don't know what they're looking down at. They probably looking at their script. They might be looking at their phone. They might be looking at anything. They might be looking at their monitor. Who knows? But just having a few dot points. The same with promos. Like a few dot points for the people that can talk and can deliver good promos. This is the marks that we kind of want you to hit, or the things that we really think that this story's about. But you can tell that story in your own way, or the way that you think your character is trying to build this angle. We trust you, and that's the sort of thing that you need to have trust with the people that are there, that are like, hey, we're trying to, not just do this or do that or whatever else it is. We're trying to, we make sure we all have that trust, and we're not going to betray that trust, and we all know where we're all going, because that's one of those important things too. Like, if somebody goes off script, it's one of those things, you can say, okay, well, live TV is a lot worse. But again, let's cut the feed. Let's cut to something else or whatever else it is. If somebody's really going off script and we don't want people to see this, okay, quickly, let's let's go to the next segment, or let's do something else, or whatever else it is. Quick, cut away from this and do something else. Like that sort of thing. But like when it's taped, all you got to do is edit that shit out of there. That's what they did for the Chris Bay thing. That went horribly awry, and they didn't decide to showcase any of it. So that was one of those things that maybe it will never see the light of day. It will only have been seen by those few people that were in attendance, and I don't know how many people caught it on their like cell phones or whatever else it is, and if that video's out there. But I have the distinct feeling somewhere along the way that somebody said, hey, can no one please post this, or maybe you shouldn't post this, or whatever else it is. I think there is some videos of it out there, a little bit, but I don't I don't think that there's much of it kind of out there, and they maybe kind of, I don't know whether they banned it or whether they said, hey, if anyone posts this shit, can you please delete it to Twitter or Facebook or whatever else, or anything like that. But, again, like, whatever. But that's that sort of thing, like, understandably so, like, that's not something that, should be broadcast, really. It's like, well, what's the point of this? And if somebody is going off script, same thing. This is, like, it's hard to sell it on commentary, but, like, you start saying, like, something's happening in the back, let's, like, something, there's a fight broken out or something, like, or whatever else it is, and then you cut to the back, something important, like, we're getting word from the back, like, we've got to cut, because this person's gone off the rails or whatever it is, like. So again, figuring out where you're at, why you're at, like, selling these things, like, that's why you need to know, like, at least in general, okay, they're gonna, Steve and Eric, they're gonna bleed, like, heavily in this match, and this is gonna be brutal, this is gonna be a brutal match, or whatever else it is. Okay, holy shit, okay, oh dear, like, this is gonna be crazy, it's gonna be a fight tonight, it's not gonna be pretty. Put the little kids away, put grandma away, yeah, viewer discretion is advised, This is a fucking dog collar match. And these guys have a heated rivalry, like, that's what's going on. So that's where we're at, so. But yeah, no, I don't like it. I don't like to even see some of these other matches with some of these other wrestlers when the announcers, don't care, because it's like, oh, you can tell that at least one of these people hasn't got anything going for them, because, like, they are not really referencing a story very much, and if they haven't been on TV very much, it's been like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's a little bit of story there, but there's not a real big story there. It's not like the announcers are putting in that much effort to get this over, and that's also reflected of the talent that's in it. If the talent aren't, doing that, where they're talking to the commentary and saying, hey, I haven't had a match in a while, and whatnot, and all of this sort of stuff, and this is my first, like, this, I've been on a losing streak here for the last 6 months, or whatever the fuck it's been, like, that's my story going into this match. I haven't had a match in a while, or whatever else it is, and this is like 6 months or 8 months of worth of losing, and that's my story going into this match. Now, I'm going to turn heel in this match because I'm frustrated and whatnot, and I'm trying to get something started or whatever else it is for myself, because I'm pissed because I've been on a 6-month losing streak or whatever else it is, and now finally I've fucking snapped because I've had enough, and I fucking, want to fucking go on and fucking, be something more than just like, here I am to look up at the lights, like, and that's fair enough. I understand that. Like, so let's figure out something, with the creative, or even saying, so like, somebody from, the creative should be coming along and saying, hey, like, we really should talk about this guy and stuff and whatnot, or even saying same thing for commentary, like coming along and saying, hey, well, we know this guy, we know his story, like, build it up, like, just put it out there, like, the story. He hasn't had a match in how many weeks or whatever it is, and he's on how many months worth of a losing streak or whatever it is. He's got to be frustrated, like, you've got to sell this, he's getting more and more frustrated. He can't put away Eric Young or whatever else it is, this has finally reached boiling point for him, and he's had enough, and he's gonna do whatever it takes now. He's gonna be more dangerous than ever, like, type thing. You've got to sell it. You can't just be sitting there and saying, here we go, here's a match, and it exists. Okay, here comes the other person to enter, and then they're gonna wrestle such and such. But their real issue is with somebody else. That's where you can really tell that, when they're sort of talking either about, like, either one of the wrestlers that actually has some angle kind of going along already, or they're starting to talk about other matches and other rivalries and other things that are kind of have happened or are happening. It's like, oh, what's happening with such and such? Dude, there's a match literally going on, and I get that that stuff's important and whatnot as well, but again, you need to focus on the task at hand. You could say something about it, but you say, the task at hand is the match that's in front of us, especially early on in the match. Like, that's something that you should say. It's like, we just saw a horrific, thing between such and such and such and such, but this match takes precedent. We've got this match to call. We've got to do this, and we've got to focus on the action here, and we'll keep you updated as best we can on the situation with such and such or whatever else it is. You've got to sell what's in front of you. Like, even if you're not engaged, like, you've got to find things to go, okay, what can I remember about, like, this guy or that guy or whatever else it is, and let's make it up ourselves, like, because we know what's been going on. Don't just rely on, like, having had like all these discussions with somebody or whatever else it is. Sell what you're gonna have, like, and of course, again, you're gonna have these production meetings, and then you're gonna say, well, why aren't we selling this match? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you gonna say during this match? Oh, we don't know. Like, we don't really have many notes on this match, but we need to be selling the key points of it. Like, even that, you should know that from just, like, basic commentary, like, skills. Like, call what you see, call what you know. I don't, like, even if you don't know the exact details, you start saying, I haven't seen him win a match in months, maybe 6 months or so, like something like that, or, or whatever else it is. Like, say these things that are sort of kind of true, and start to go, he must be frustrated, he must be, and how's he gonna get through that frustration in this match, and you can't be, you can't be talking about these other matches and these other feuds and these other things that are happening too much. Like, mentioning them is important because, hey, people are there and they're going, oh, what's coming up tonight? Maybe this is the first time that they're finding out what's on the card tonight, whatever else it is, you never know, because some people do that where they turn up to a show, and that is important too. That is another role of commentary, of saying, hey, this is what you're, tuning in to expect tonight, So that is an important task. So you don't take that away from him, but you can't take that away from whatever is happening right in front of you at the time. Because again, especially if it's a match, oh, pinfall, and then you're trying to say, oh, and upcoming next is Ryan Nemeth and Nick Nemeth versus the Hardys. Oh, quick, wait, pinfall, oh, pinfall, oh, just a two, of course, just a two, instead of like focusing on the action, like, or whatever else it is. You've got to focus on the action. Like, it is tough, but again, like, that is like 9 times out of 10 the number one priority, because like as soon as like something is happening, you've got to find the right time to kind of say these things. Like, you have to be saying it in the time that people are putting on those rest holds, or are putting on those, or have just gone to the outside, or whatever else it is, for a big dive or something else, or whatever else it is. Because that is the time that, there's suddenly a lull kind of in the match, or whatever else it is. And now you're going to see, the next bit come after this. So you're trying to pad some of that stuff and whatnot. But again, like, you should still be like saying little things here and there. Why is he, putting him in a, chin lock, or why is he trying to put him in a sort of a sleeper? Well, he's trying to drain his energy. He's trying to tire him out. Whatever else it is, the logical inference, obviously. But again, explaining away why is that? Well, it's because he's faster, like, he's got more, energy than this guy can keep up with, so he's trying to slow him down. You're giving more information, saying, why is he doing that? Oh, well, he might be doing that because this guy is faster, so he's trying to slow him down. He's going for the leg, trying to slow him down. It might not win him the match so much, but it might just slow his opponent down enough so that, he can gain the advantage at times, Or it might just win him the match. If it wins him the match, great. But also it's going to slow down his opponent, Things like that, like, you have to, it's whatever it is. Like, if you're for a 2-hour TV show, or a 3 or 4 hour pay-per-view, or whatever else it is a non-stop effort to call matches and promos and whatnot. You really don't get much of a break and all of that. So it can be a lot of work, but you've always got to have the same level of sort of energy and effort throughout the whole show. You've got to put in the same amount of energy and effort into 2 guys that are jobbers going up against each other as you do the fucking main event, like, that's a heated blood feud that's been going on for months, or whatever else it is. You need to have all of those elements. You can't just go, oh, well, this is a job match between 2 guys, so we won't care, or whatever else it is. Or whatever, if it's suddenly the main event, but it's 3 hours later, or whatever else it is, or 5 hours later, it's like, okay, here we go, it's the end of the show now, because this is the main event, so, and you're starting to go down, and you're starting to be like losing it, and then it's sort of fading out, or whatever. You lost that energy. You don't really care anymore, and it's just like, I'm done with this. Can I go to the hotel now? Like, in your voice, people can tell, like, you're tired. And it's okay to be tired, but you got to be like, oh, we've got to kill this last match. I can't wait to see who's going to walk out with the title, though. You've got to be on the edge of your seat, even though you're still tired, or whatever else it is, 3 hours of whatever it is later. So it's a hard job, but again, that's what you got to do when you're commentary. You got to have all these things going together to make the show and to make it great. But I know you guys know that. But again, I do these for the people that kind of don't really know that, and kind of go, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. They've got to do so much work, and they've got to be so much involved, and they've got to understand so much about what's going on, and why it's going on, and how it's going on, and that sort of thing, and what to expect, but not too much, Same for promos. They can't just know every word from a promo, because if they know every word from the promo, they can't react the way that they naturally feel like they should react to whatever somebody says. And sometimes you got to lay out or whatever else it is in those promos and then react after, but still you get that sense of going, well, what did we just hear, Michael? Whatever, like, is Booker T really retiring or whatever, like what, or whatever it is, like that's what you got to react to, so that's the situation. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one.